6 p.m. for the April monthly meeting of April the 11th, 2022 of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Excuse me. Officially, the Board of Zoning Appeals. 2023, excuse me again. Call the roll, please.
Kevin Skaggs.
Kathy Stallworth.
Wes Summers.
Bill Burkhalter.
Jim Newman.
Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of March the 7th.
I had one change that needed to be made.
All right.
Under section 5B, under the consideration, I think I read the motion then, instead of Mr. Newman. Motion by Mr. Skaggs. Instead of Mr. Newman. You got that?
Any other changes? Just for your information, Madam Vice Chairman, since you and I wasn't here the other night, there was no changes on the meeting agenda on the minutes when we, of course, you're a school teacher and you didn't correct anything.
I wasn't here to correct
Okay, just checking. All right, we confirm that the agenda is, has been changed by the one change. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
First up, when do you want to use yourself?
Madam Secretary, I've already turned in. I'm going to recuse myself from the consideration of either of the items of business. Although I know nothing about them, I have occasional work that I still do for the school district, and so I don't want there to be any appearance of a conflict, so I'll leave at this point. I'm not leaving the building, just the room.
And he also doesn't have to leave the room, and he can really sit up here if he wanted to. So we'll. Okay. First up on the agenda is variance number ZB23-003. It's a request by Hammond Hills Elementary School for a variance from Article 13, signs, Section 13.8.3.L.I. and 13.8.3.L.II. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader boards of the North Augusta Development Code to allow an electronic reader board in a public zoning district that exceeds 50% of the sign of the area's sign area. The request affects a portion of approximately 12.31 acres Zone P public use located at 901 West Woodlawn Avenue, tax district number 006-17-06-107. First, we'll hold a public hearing, and then we'll have a consideration. Before I do that, I want to read exactly what we have to find in the affirmative on each one of these in order to grant or not grant a variance. And the reason I want to read them is because we got two. And I'm going to read them one time, and then we're going to handle each variance by itself. But that way I won't have to read 10 items again. Okay. And again, we have to find in the affirmative. It says a variance may be granted in an individual case of unnecessary hardship if the Board of Zoning Appeals makes and explains in writing all of the following. Number one, an unnecessary hardship exists. Number two, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Number three, conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. 4, because of the condition, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of a variance. harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or the potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Number 6, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13, signs regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. Number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance in effect which would be to A, allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or C, to change the zoning district boundaries shown in the official zoning map. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be grounds for a variance. And number 10, in granting the variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building structure or the use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. And based on these facts, finding of fact, the Board of Zoning may approve with conditions, or deny the request. So those are the 10 things we have to discuss. And the way we have historically done them is we will take them one at a time. And if we come to one that we cannot find in the affirmative, we will stop the process of the vote at that time. Madam Secretary, did we advertise this, put it in the newspaper, put out signs? All right. Anything you want to tell us about this project, please?
This is very similar to the other school signs you've seen in the past. The request is for an electronic reader board, which is not allowed in this district, but also for a sign that exceeds 50% of the sign area. So the reader board is approximately 60% of the total sign area.
And as I understand it, this is the last 2 schools in the area?
Yes. You have granted variances for the other middle schools and for Mossy Creek Elementary and North Augusta Elementary.
Okay, so really, I guess
Last 2 currently.
there's just one left other than that. I guess that's the Our Lady of Peace School, but that's not a public school.
Right.
Okay, thank you. All right. We'll start by item number 1. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we are. I'll now open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here that wants to speak for or against in the audience? Please come down, ma'am, if you can. Will you raise your right hand and you swear to God, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I
help you God?
do.
Will you give your name and address, please?
Yeah, my name is Melinda Bradley. And I'm at 902 Amherst Drive, in North Augusta.
What would you like to say, please?
Hi, my name is Melinda Bradley. I'm fortunate to be a teacher with Aiken County Public School District. I work at Mossy Creek, and I'm also a neighbor of Hammond Hill for 32 years. So I've been there a long time. We've gone through a lot of changes, as you know. Hammond Hill is a brand new school, and it's so different than it was when I moved there 32 years ago. And I understand change is inevitable. A couple times I have to say, I've called the city because I've just been concerned with things like cutting down the street trees, just things that have made our little street much different than they were when we moved in. Just living across from a 2-story building is different than when we moved in. And they told me that there's really nothing they could do because it's a school, and schools, they're on their own. They need to do what they have to do to improve, and that's good. But when the sign came up, first of all, I was confused because the sign said Highland Springs, and I was like, well, I wonder why they're putting a sign down here to vote on that when it's Hammond Hill. So I got that figured out. I called them and they changed it. That was good. I'm concerned because there weren't any of the zoning signs up near where the sign is actually going to be. And I think that's probably why I'm the only person here. Because I'm not sure the neighbors could see the sign like I could see the signs because they're on my street and not on Woodlawn. But I knew that a lit up reader board is not what we would like in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is an old neighborhood. It's a sweet neighborhood. And change of that type, having a sign that's kind of like a gas station sign right across from the street isn't acceptable. I know that all the other elementary schools have them, but I have 20 feet from my end of my lawn to the school. It's 20 feet. I don't live across from where that sign is going to be, but there are people also 20 feet from that sign. It's a lit up sign in a neighborhood. And right now we're already contending with the lights in front of the school building. They're very bright, and thank the Lord that they're not on all night anymore. That took us a while to get that changed. But they come on at 5 a.m. And when they come on, all the fronts of our houses can see them clearly. And there are bedrooms on the fronts of our houses. So just the light that's coming from there and the lack of the school district trying to make any changes to maybe turn them on later or turn them off earlier, just makes me know that having a reader board that's lit up on that side of the street is not what we would like for our neighborhood. And I think if you asked anybody, would you like a lit up reader board 20 feet from your house? I really believe that everybody would say they would not like it. I work at an elementary school. We have a reader board. And I can tell you, it's a trend. Maybe for high schools and middle schools, maybe it's useful, but it hasn't changed anything at our elementary school. Teachers are still going to write newsletters. Teachers are still going to have websites and remind apps and call parents. That does very little. And our reader board that we got for the front of Mossy Creek, almost from the time we got it, if you look on one side of it, there's a big square of a black space that's not lit up. It's kind of like a broken sign. On the other side of it, I was driving into work this morning and everything seemed so small that I could hardly even tell what was being advertised on it. So I think it's a trend. I don't think it's useful for elementary schools. And maybe other neighborhoods around those elementary schools weren't so bothered by it because those houses aren't as close as the ones around Hammond Hill. Hammond Hill is completely locked in to neighbors all around. And I guess that's all I have to say about it. I really, really implore that you do not put a lit up reader board sign. Everything that needs to be put on a sign right now can be on that sign right now. The last time I came to one of these, we were voting on that sign that's currently there. And we agreed that the height, we could go with the height, but it wasn't lit up. And it wasn't lit up for a reason, because neighbors were very close. Still the same people live in the same area. So that sign wasn't lit up because of the neighbors. There's still neighbors. I don't think that we need a lit up reader board in that space. Yeah.
Question. You mentioned that the lights from the school are turned off at night. What time are they turned off?
Now they turn off at 8 o'clock now, but they come on at 5 a.m. And when I asked why they come on at 5 a.m., it's because there are people working there at 5 a.m. there aren't. If there are, it's construction workers that come in at 5 a.m. to start their work. Nobody is there at 5 a.m. I can guarantee it. One morning, a kid was dropped off at 6 a.m. just to sit out there under the lights because it was a car line. But they were on all night, and thank goodness now that they go off at 8 o'clock.
Let me ask you, excuse me, let me ask you a question. When you have a night where you have the parent-teacher association meetings,
Yeah.
what time do they usually get over?
They're getting over earlier now, but just because, it's hard to pay for staff that late. Probably by 7.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Ms. Bradley?
I was concerned, but one thing I was concerned in your about the bushes dying and all that has anything been done about that?
No. And I guess, okay, I work for the best employer in the world. I love them. I live across from the worst neighbor in the world. And it's such a paradox because they're both the same. No, and I watched them. They said, that detention pond is going to look beautiful when it's done. Don't call us again until it's done. And I saw they came out and put bushes, and I thought, that's amazing, because maybe it will. Nothing's happened. They don't get watered. They just die. And I really feel like sometimes Aiken County Public Schools has a hard time maintaining their grounds. I really do believe that, and that's just from living across from the grounds. And it has nothing, I love teaching.
That has nothing
so-
to do with this sign.
No, that didn't have anything to do with
That's-
it.
It doesn't have anything to do with the sign.
Curious about that.
Yeah, well, I will be glad to tell you, and plenty more.
Yeah, I can tell you that I've been in the school system here since, well, not in the system, but I went to school here in grammar school, and there's never been a school ground that's ever been, I call it improved or done anything else to it. But anyway, that's a different story.
Well, and I kind of connect the bushes with the sign at Mossy Creek that has the big blacked out area. I mean, I connect the two things.
I think, Carly, can we ask our inspector to go out and look at that sign and see if it is broken and
Yeah.
maybe say
Code
something to
enforcement.
it? Okay, thank you.
What sign is broke?
Mossy
Oh,
Creek.
yeah, you probably should check it.
Thank you for coming down, because I was gonna have to read this letter you wrote to the city.
I mean, I put a lot of thought into that, and I really, this the last thing I want to do is come out and talk about a sign. But I just believe the character of our neighborhood is really in jeopardy.
I'm not gonna read it, but I am gonna read it into the minutes, just so that we'll have a copy of it in the minutes. And
All right.
basically, it's a letter we received April the 11th, 2023, and it was sent to the North Augusta City Council, and they in turn sent it to us. And it's by Mrs. Melinda Bradley, a resident on Amherst Drive, and we will make sure that this is put into the minutes.
When I tried to put my email into the email that's on the signs, it came back, it didn't work, and I did that through Mossy Creek email, and then I also did it through my personal email, and it didn't work in either case, so I just wanted to let you know that if other people tried to email you, it might not have worked. That's one reason I went through the
It will
council.
be in the minutes.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your participation here.
Anybody else that wants to speak for or against? Okay, is there anybody here from the school district that would like to speak, please? We'll let you speak, please. You'll come up? Yes, sir. Will you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
State your name and,
Ron Wade, Aiken, South Carolina, 441 York Street.
what you want to tell us about the sign.
Okay, I appreciate Ms. Bradley's comments. Some of the things we've done in areas that I think will help this, I think we try to do it with the street lights, but we can change the sign to where it can come in on, 7 o'clock or when and go off at 7 o'clock, something like that. It can be programmed. I think a lot of the school districts, people we've got and talked to, we've heard both, but I think that there's been mostly positive feedback on the signage. Today's world, people want instant messages, this type of thing. They want multiple messages, whereas the sign they currently have does not have that capability as the other ones had not as well. And I think it could be worked out with maybe not leaving it running on at nighttime, this type thing. But when you do run it at nighttime, the sign generally uses less than 20% of its power, because it uses most of its power, again, in the daytime because of the brightness of the sun. It has to burn brighter. And at nighttime, it burns with less power. So it has an automatic photo cell in there to adjust that lighting. There are some older signs out there that do not have that in there. The newer technology has that type of technology built into it. And it has where they can download messages instantly, or they can schedule messages, this type thing, and they can run a certain time. You might want to run one 2 or 3 days and have that message go off, put another one up there, but you can run multiple messages. And I think in North Augusta, every 10 seconds that they can change a message. I believe that just running in the daytime was adequate, because mostly my feeling is the sign is really useful for the people in the carpool, that type thing, where they can read messages that maybe the kids don't always tell them about things, or they just don't always pick it up on the internet, that type thing as well. It's a busy world, and I just think it's a good form of communication, and it's a growing technology that people are using. And it's growing every day, and it's more and more being used.
Where is that sign controlled from?
It's actually
School or
controlled
Aiken?
from the school. It comes with a laptop computer, so it doesn't have to go onto their computer network system. And whoever I guess wants to train, we train them how to use it and everything, where they design the message that goes up there, this type thing. And they can download it from the laptop right there from the school there that goes out to the sign. Generally, you got to have about 1,500 feet of clear, not going through a bunch of walls, this type of thing. But if we have to, we can put an outside antenna up to help transmit as well.
Anybody else got any questions?
Or are you asked to maintain the signs?
We will. We maintain the sign, and after the warranty period is up, if they call us, we will maintain it. They're very simple to operate. Basically, the only thing that ever goes out on one is you have in the sign panels. Each one of these panels have the LED lights in them, and they come in different millimeters, this type thing. Nowadays, the signs are mostly 16 or 10 millimeter. They're getting where the readability is much higher. They look very good. People put graphics with it, because sometimes you can put graphics up there and the message is caught on just like that, because it speaks, rather than putting words up there sometimes. It's just easy system to operate when you do have a problem. If it is a maintenance issue, I think generally all you do is unplug this board, you get another board, plug the other one in, and you're ready to go again.
So the one at Mossy Creek, which I know has nothing to do with this, is what, would you say, 10 years old, 12 years old? So that's kind of outdated compared to.
No, Mossy Creek's a new sign.
It's a new
If
sign.
they're having a problem, it's probably just, that's why it's a warranty period, to work those things out. We just need to be informed this now.
So the programming, the on-off programming of the sign itself, is that something you have to put in there, or is that something the school can adjust?
Programming?
Yeah.
No, we delivered as a computer with the programming already in it. We'll put in there, for example, we'll put in there that it cannot flash. It cannot have video. It cannot do scrolling, because those are city codes, okay? So we try to, and plus we tell them that, don't change it if somebody figures it out. But we go through them with the operator, make sure they have knowledge of what the rules are. Also, if they ever change operators, when a new person takes over someone else, we're more than happy to come back and train those people as well.
So in the previous applications, we had conditions that were of when the sign had to be off.
Yeah, most of them.
So are those times what you put in to the program?
We can put them in there, whatever y'all want us to put in there, we put in there. Some places we had like 7 to, I think, 6 to 10. Some of them we had even less, okay? But, and that's understandable. We got some schools, I told you, that they even have 2 signs, but I mean, that's one school has two signs. But it's just a good form. That's the way technology is going today, and that's what can I say?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. School District, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions if you'd come up, please. State your name and address.
Tim Yarborough, 43 Wild Meat Court, North Augusta, South Carolina.
Raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Question number one is, can you take care of having Mossy Creek fixed?
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
then Cully, you don't have to do that. He's got that message.
I'll mention it to code enforcement.
How often do y'all change the message on these things? Would you say on average one? Say
Yes, sir.
North Augusta Middle School now, how often do you change that one?
Well, that is a school level function, so when the administrator at the school, the principal, decides that he or she wants to change the message, they do. Of course, it's depending on what events are coming up in the school year and that they want parents to see, the messages that they want to put up there. Just as Mr. Wade mentioned, that laptop that they have allows them to manipulate the messages and change them as they wish to. It's really a principal's decision.
So if they've only got one thing coming up and they're gonna be out of school Friday, that's probably the only message that would be there all day? Would it-
Possibly, yes, sir.
Would it roll if it's a single message?
Well, that's depending on the local codes that require how often it can change and that kind of thing. But yes, it would be the same message over and over again.
And this particular sign is pretty much a standardized, which this county school system has adopted as their sign standard, but they.
That's correct, yes, sir. I think she mentioned that the sign that you're considering is the exact same sign that's at North Augusta Elementary, North Augusta Middle School, yes, sir. So the dimensions, the mock-up that you have, it's a standard sign, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Earl.
All right, thanks.
One last shot at this. Anybody in the audience like to say anything again? Or for the first time? Come on down. Okay. Any questions, anybody, before I close it? Then I close the public hearing for this particular variance. So as I stated before, what we have to do now is we take each one of them one at a time and decide on it and then move to the next one. So I'll go to number one, is an unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the proposed sign meets the needs for the school to communicate important information to students, parents, and the public, and that signs of similar size with reader boards have not been rejected at any school location by any other jurisdiction. I'm assuming you're talking about Aiken County. Well, number one, what are we thinking?
Based on past precedent, past precedent with the other signs. It's a school standard.
You good with that one?
I'm good.
Number two is there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The applicant states that schools typically fall within residential environment, but that the current code does not address its role in the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. And I think I asked the question of Tommy last time. Is any of this going to change in the new development code?
It's my understanding that the current draft of the development code will allow for this type of sign in the public use district.
In the public, which is a P.
Right.
Okay. That's what I thought I remember him saying before, but I wasn't sure. What do we think about number two?
I'm good.
Well, I don't think that it's exceptional, extraordinary and exceptional conditions. However, in one respect, but then it is the only school in the district, in that area. So that would be a exception. So I think we have to go with yes on that one.
The conditions do, number 3 is the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that the school is unique in its service to the community. Unlike a business advertising service for a profit, the electronic reader board will be used to improve communications between the school, its students, and their parents.
I'm good with that.
Well, it is the only, like I said, the only school.
And there are churches in the area, but none of them so far has actually physically, the 2 churches that are close have not approached us for anything. Not True North, but Victory.
Victory.
Victory came down, but they withdrew, waiting on the new code.
Right.
So we're good with that one?
We had a church in a residential district.
Yeah, there was a church in a residential district, but then we turned that down, the last meeting. Okay, number 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, and the applicant states that the North Augusta Development Code does not directly address school signage. The argument is that prohibiting an electronic reader board would unnecessarily limit the amount of information the school is able to transmit through signage. They state that the overall sign area proposed is smaller than the allowed by the code and otherwise meets the intent of the code if the electronic reader board is accepted. That is true. Anybody disagree with that?
I'm good with it.
Okay, number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential of the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatibility with late-night activity. The applicant states that the proposed sign will not hinder any other property's signage and that the location will not create excessive noise, light, traffic, or late-night activity as it is screened by hill, vegetation, and commercial entities. Staff notes that the electronic reader board creates the potential for nighttime light pollution, but that the majority of residents are located beyond direct view of the sign location and on the Hammond Hills Elementary property. And like you stated before, we can assure if this passes, there will be a limit on when that sign has to go off at night and come on in the morning.
Carly, can you tell me exactly, I was a little confused about exactly where that sign's going? Where the one is now?
It's not. So if you
That's
look
what-
at this exhibit, it would be the exit to the new lane configuration. So
okay.
closer to Amherst.
Amherst, right,
and
that's what
Bunting.
I thought.
It's going to be on Amherst,
Yes.
around on that side. Yes, ma'am.
It appears that that was incorrect because based on this exhibit that was provided by the sign company, the sign location is closer to Amherst, so it's not on the West Woodlawn.
Well, I will ask the school district to speak on that. Mr. Yarborough, can you clear that up? Where is the sign physically going to be located? On Amherst. Okay. Yes. Yes, ma'am, that's what they're saying. Yes, sir. That is true.
Review.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where the entrance starts.
So the car line now is going to circle around the school? Oh, it already does?
Yes.
I know where that sign is, right? At the exit.
Right. Well, yeah, the traffic doesn't change. The traffic pattern doesn't change. It's like it is. It's I guess 6 lanes, 6 or 7 lanes, 7 lanes. But they, well, no, not while they're in the car line up on the hill. It's not going to happen. But there is a stop sign coming out of there, and they have to stop coming out of there. If I'm looking at it at the right spot. Yeah, they got to drive past it as they come out.
Yes, this is where it is on the application, whether it's right or wrong, it's good or better. Another location, okay.
It's so what do we think about number 5?
Well, I have a question for Mr. Wade. Is it going to be facing this way toward Amherst or this way coming, so you're looking at it? So it's facing like the retention pond, not facing Amherst. Right, right.
Good.
As long as we got conditions, I'm good.
Yeah, we're going to put some conditions on it, just about every one of these, if it comes to that. Number 6, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13, signs regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of the sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility and understanding. Recognition and understanding. Electronic reader boards are, the applicant says that electronic reader board signs are allowed in certain zoning districts, i.e. office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, and industrial districts. It cannot exceed 50% of the sign area. The application requests a reader board occupying 60% of the total sign area. The applicant states that the cost to maintain a non-standard sign is significantly higher and would lead to the need for an additional training by operators. I think we could probably talk a little bit about the sign the way it is now, but if it comes to a safety issue or something that's got to be gotten out right away, somebody on that sign has to go out and climb a ladder and put up the letters, and I think that type sign is just going away. Especially in this day's environment with all this safety problems that other people are having at schools. Thank God we don't have them in North Augusta, but it could happen sometime. Let's pray it doesn't. What are yours
Based on precedent, I'm good.
thinking of this one?
Oh, I just have something, I think this is for Mr. Wade also. Now, why do we have signs here that are, 60% instead of 50%, which evidently was a standard, it says, because that was a standard at some point?
More or less, and the other thing though too is I think the maximum height here is 10 feet. So if you put that, what should we put right on the ground?
Okay.
So we're good with that one.
Yes.
The Zoning Board of Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to, A, allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district. Signs are allowed in the public zoning. B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of the land. We do not do that. And C, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. We're not doing that.
That was okay.
I got a question about that, though. The bullet under A, where it says signs are allowed in public zoning, is that signs or reader boards? Signs.
Yep. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The applicant states that the location and use of the property warrant the variance request.
I go past precedent with schools here. Based on
Yeah.
past precedent with the schools.
Past, present, we go with that one. All right, number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. Staff recognizes that the property is operated as a public school and his request is not based on profitability of the land. So that one is okay. Now, number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. The variance, if granted, shall apply only to this property and the sign details submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time of the request or request another variance if applicable. Staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow all regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitation to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of this case order. Staff is open to suggestions or other conditions. Well, I want to ask a question. What time does the school open up? But what time would students a parent actually bring a kid to drop off? Okay. 7 a.m., okay.
Our other conditions had the sign coming on at 6 a.m.
Right. And the other condition also, we had it going off at 10.
11,
At 11?
yeah.
That was over at North Augusta Junior High.
That was at junior high because
They
they have
games and
basketball.
things like that.
I think all of them said it. Said the same thing, yeah.
Well, this one won't.
Well, I also want
I think we ought to cut this sign off
I
at
do
8
too.
o'clock.
Question. That goes back to the future code and all that kind of stuff. And you said that if the sign was to be replaced, so if we approved this sign and it was to be replaced, it would have to go by the new code.
By the new code, that's
So
correct.
if they stuck up a 4x8 piece of plywood right now and the new code comes out next week that allows this, we wouldn't have to be here and they can put this rear board up without even having to come here, correct?
I guess technically, but it's not going to be, it's
Well,
not
that's what
going
I'm
to be.
just saying. I mean,
Yeah.
is the new sign cone, and I know I'm trying to go off limits here, does that limit times of operations or, because I'm looking at it two different ways. If we just say scrap it and just let them do nothing, and when the new sign ordinance come up, they can just, it's free will.
Free will if there's no,
If there's nothing directing time, now if we approve it here, we can put limitations to 7 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, and they've got to follow that for as long as they hold that sign.
Yeah, I think going through this process, you do offer more
Security and
limitations and protection to the neighbors than waiting for the new code. I don't have the new code,
That is
you know,
correct, and I
to
understand.
reference, but I doubt that there are time limitations in there. That's not
And
typically
that's kind of what I'm
something-
trying to, if, like I
Right.
said, what we decide, you know, Mr. Aiken County here can say, hey, we'll just take it back and we'll just go, because I know it's going to be approved in 6 months and just get whatever we want, and it runs
that's-
24 hours.
That's an option for them.
one more question about the new code. When is the next public hearing?
So there's a planning commission meeting not next week, the 19th. And at that meeting, they're going back into study session to review some of the public hearing comments. So the earliest the next public hearing would be May.
Okay, thank you. That's a little off subject, but I needed to know that.
I think, did you have a question? I thought Ms. Bradley had her hand up. Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm with 8 o'clock all the way, but I don't,
I'm good
What
with
time
that.
do
If
what
that's-
time the lights turn off? 8. I mean, it's daylight now. till
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Is that reasonable with the school district? Okay.
well, the reason I asked about PTO and all that was to make sure that, you know, even if you're going to have some kind of meeting there or something, and you got a message you need to get to those people, I want to make sure you were open long enough, it was on long enough for them to see that. Thank you very much. All right, what else?
So the on time in the morning would be 6, 7?
Well,
We said 6 at the other ones.
yes, sir. Even in the morning, they don't let them come through, just, they start lining up. Well, and so then they take the cones down and start them through at 7. Okay. I know also they start lining up at 12 o'clock noon some days. They need to.
I always thought too.
There's a lot of people that are sitting there from 12 to 12:30 till 2:30. Anyway, what's your pleasure about cutting it on?
I think 7 a.m. till 8.
Mr. Yarborough, what do you think about that from the school side? They're not supposed to be there before.
I mean, we did have a third condition on the other ones,
What was that?
and it was, should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirement of the sign code in place at the time or request another variance if applicable.
Right, that's the one that the staff recommended, so that's good. We need to put that one in there too. So are we good with 10 with the, Okay. So based on the fact that we have agreed in the affirmative on all 10, I need a motion to approve the variance for Hammond Hill School sign.
I'll read it if I can get my act together. Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 23-003, Hammond Hill Elementary School sign, a request by Aiken County Public Schools for a variance pursuant to section Article 13 signs, section 13.8.3.L.I and 13.8.3.L.II. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader boards, district and sign area of the North Augusta Development Code to, for an increased electronic reader board sign area and a reader board in itself be granted with the following conditions. There are 3. Number 1, this variance, if granted, will apply only to this property and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time or request another variance if applicable. Okay, so there's only 2. Those ask combine 2 into 1. The second one is staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified about, well, that sentence doesn't get put in there. So 2 conditions.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Newman. Any discussion on it? All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Pass unanimous. Thank you all for coming. Okay. With that, I will read the next one. If I can find it.
Now, Carly, because Ms. Bradley said that there were no zoning signs up on Woodlawn, and that's because that exceeds the footage required because of this sign's gonna be down on Amherst. Is that correct?
I think there were multiple signs placed, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to confirm with the staff that
Now,
out where they were located. She's referencing the public hearing signs.
I think there was 3.
Yeah, typically we place them on each frontage, not in the
No,
location.
there was 2. There was one on Woodlawn and there was one on
Amherst.
Amherst. Yes, I saw them both. One thing I forgot to ask, and I better ask it now. Are you tearing the old sign down? Good.
So they're only supposed to have one freestanding sign
Right.
per
Right.
parcel.
That's why I
Right.
want to make sure. Okay, very good. Okay, here we go. The next one, item number 6 on our agenda is. No, that's not it. Yeah, I got it right. Is number ZV 23004. A request by Highland Springs Middle School for a variance for Article 13 signs, Section 13.8.3.L.I. and 13.8.3.L.II. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses. Electronic reader boards of the North Augusta Development Code to allow an electronic reader board in a public zoning district that exceeds 50% of the sign area. The request affects a portion of approximately 51.30 acres Zone P public use, located at Belvedere Clearwater Road and Old Sud Lake Road. Tax District number 023-05-01-003. And as I stated earlier, I'm not going to read the 10 items again. We'll go over each one. And right now, I'll open the public hearing. Carly, what can you tell us about this one?
So this request is identical to the one that you just heard. This will be for the new Highland Springs Middle School. The location of it is similar to what we just saw as well, where the sign will be located on one of the exit driveways towards the rear of the property. This will be part of a new planned development, so currently it's not surrounded by existing residential areas.
So it's not emptying out on Sudlow or Belvedere Clearwater?
It's not. They're,
No,
let
the
me-
road's there. You can drive up to the school now.
if you want to look at the exhibit on
Yeah, there you
the
go.
screen, there's a back entrance, but the sign is not going to be located on one of the entrances or exits from any existing development. You can see Old Sudlow, but you can't see Belvedere Clearwater. It's cut off, so the roads on the left of the screen are new roads that are in.
It's going to be a beautiful school.
Are there springs there? Is that why it's called Highland Springs?
I'm not sure.
Mr. Wade, would you like to tell us anything about this sign? I will swear you in again. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I will.
Thank you.
Basically, it's like she says, the same situation. As you see where the sign is located there now, it's another driveway situation. You can come in, you see down the, kind of to the left of where the sign is going to be, there's a roundabout there, and the traffic will flow down one side. As they go around, they can read it as they're going down. They go around, loop there, and they come back out on the opposite side and exit to back onto the street to leave there. This sign's kind of interesting because of the fact that the driveway has when you're driving in it, on the left side, it actually has, I guess, anywhere from 20 to 30 foot retaining wall there. So I don't say that sign could ever bother anyone as far as because of that wall. But it's got a long driveway. It's got a good, you see it going down, you see it going when you take a right, you see it when you come back around again. So I think this is a good usage of the sign because of that design. But other than that, everything's basically the same. If you want to put restrictions on it, we can. I really don't see any need to put restrictions on it. We can always come back and add if we want to. But being this is a middle school, it's like North Augusta, I think I need to consider the times to be a little bit later than that of an elementary school. Basically, other than that, everything's the same. And by the way, I will take care of Mossy Creek for you. I'll get
Please
that called
do.
in for you.
Did you not know about it?
No, ma'am, They don't call if we don't know about them.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, looking into that.
Any questions of him?
No,
Okay. Mr. Yarborough, anything you want to add? I will ask you a question, though. Since it's 51 acres of land out there, is there a proposal for another school, like an elementary or a high school on that same property at any time?
That's a difficult question to answer,
Okay.
but in the initial, very early schematic stages, yes, sir, that was discussed, a middle school and an elementary school. So I guess with the amount of acreage, that could be possible at some point in the future, yes, sir.
Now, is that going to create a problem if they decide to build that? Would they have to have another variance to put a?
They may need a variance for a second sign.
Okay.
It's hard to answer with the code being in flux, but that's a possibility. They
Yeah,
would have to come back
I
and.
thought I remembered somewhere somebody said, well, there might be another school out there. Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody in the audience want to speak for or against it? Yes, ma'am? That is the case. It's going to be at the school. Yes, ma'am.
I can't read it from up
We're
here.
looking at it on the screen and we can't read it, so. Thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Any questions of anybody?
no, sir.
Close the public hearing. Now we'll have the consideration. So. Evaluation. All righty. Number one, unnecessary hardship exists. The applicant states that the proposed sign meets the needs for the school to communicate important safety information. I added that, by the way. Important safety information to students, parents, and the public, and that signs of similar size and reader boards have not been rejected at any school location by others jurisdiction. I guess we can find that one okay.
Good.
Number two, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The applicant states that the schools typically fall within residential environments, but that the current code does not address its role in the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. Fine, okay for that one.
Yes.
Number three, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that the school is unique in its service to the community. Unlike a business advertising service for a profit, the electronic reader board will be used to improve communications between the school and the students and parents.
I'm good.
You good with that one? Because of the condition, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And the applicant states that the North Augusta Development Code does not directly address school signage. Their argument is that prohibiting an electronic reader board would unreasonably limit the amount of information the school is able to transmit through signage. They state that the overall sign area proposed is smaller than the allowed by the code and otherwise meets the intent of the code if the electronic reader board is accepted. We're good with that one.
I'm good.
Number five, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, incompatible late-night activity. The applicant states that the proposed sign will not hinder any other property signage and that the location will not create excessive noise, light, traffic, or late-night activity as it is screened by a hill, vegetation, and commercial entities. Staff notes that the electronic reader board creates the potential for nighttime light pollution, but that the majority of residences are located beyond direct view of the sign location on the Highland Springs property. I know that one is good, but I will just make a side comment that building of houses is going to be more detrimental to the good of the school than the sign. Number 6. In the approval of an application for a variance from the provision of Article 13 signs regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of the sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. Electronic reader boards are allowed in certain zoning districts, i.e., office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, and industrial districts, but cannot exceed 50% of the sign area. The applicant requests a reader board occupying 60% of the total sign area. The applicant states that the cost to maintain a non-standard sign is significantly higher and will lead to the need for additional training of operators. I think we found okay on that one. Number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect which would be to allow the establishment of use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. We're not doing that. To extend physically a non-conforming use of the land. We're not doing that. To change the zoning district boundaries shown in the official zoning map. We're not doing that. That's okay. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. The applicant states the location and use of the property warrant the variance request. And we agreed on that.
Yes.
Number 9, the fact that the property may be utilized more profitable should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. The staff recognizes that the property is operated as a public school and the request is not based on profitability of the land. We agree on that.
Yes.
Number 10, in granting the variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public's health, safety, and general welfare. If this variance is granted, it will apply only to this property and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place and at the time or request another variance if applicable. Staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of the sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign will be expected to follow the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of the case order. And staff is open to suggestions or other conditions from the board. Do we go with a 11 to 6 here or
That's what we did for the other ones.
for the other one? Okay. Okay. So we have found in the affirmative all 10. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve with the conditions.
Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 23-004, Island Springs Middle School sign, a request from the Aiken County Public Schools for variance pursuant to sections Article 13, Section 13.8.3.l.i and 13.8.3.l.ii. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses, electronic reader board signs district and sign area. of the North Augusta Development Code to install an electronic reader board sign and increase the electronic reader board sign area be granted with the following conditions. We have two. This variance will apply only to the property, this property and the sign details as submitted. Should the sign need to be replaced, it should meet the requirements of the sign code in place at the time or request another variance if applicable. Number two, staff recommends limiting the hours of operation of this sign so that the reader board is not operated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The sign would be expected to follow all the regulated colors, refresh, and other regulations of the sign code. Any limitations to hours of operation should be specified by the board as part of this case order.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stallworth. Any discussion on this? All in favor, raise your hand. Pass unanimous. Thank you all for coming.
Well, I have a question, Mr. Yarborough, before we close the meeting here. Mr. Yarborough, who is in charge of maintaining the grounds of the schools? I want it to be on record.
Okay, the North Augusta schools are maintained by the Maintenance Department of Aiken County School District.
Or not maintained?
They are.
I said, or not maintained.
Okay.
I'm
They
a
are maintained.
retired school teacher. My husband always said, you know, you would think it is a surprise that schools are coming to, go open up. I mean, she's right. Our grounds are not maintained. And I think that's a shame. I really do.
Yes, ma'am. Well, if the principal of the school brings to our attention that the grounds are not maintained up to standard, they can contact me, and of course, we'll address it. But since you've brought that to my attention at Hammond Hill, I'm going to be looking at the situation that Ms. Bradley referred to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
Golly, anything else for us?
I don't have anything.
Anybody on the board? I want to commend you three guys that had a meeting by yourself last time. You did a good job.
Told you we'd
Okay.
handle it.